Welcome back to Morning Express. Making our next discussion on the program is an interview centered on suits and countersuits as filed by the Department of State Service DSS against Omoyele Sowore, X and Meta over what is now known as the Anti-Tinubu post. Well, joining us for this interview is our next guest who joins us virtually all the way from the capital city of Ghana, Accra, Oreoluwa Olaleye, a strategic analyst. Hello, good morning to you, Oreoluwa, and welcome to the program.
Hello, good morning.
It's a pleasure to have you join us on the program this morning.
Same thing here too.
It won't be the first time there's been some controversy in Nigeria over posts made about a president. If you recall, down history lane, it also forced for the suspension of Twitter, then now known as X in Nigeria, following the deletion of that tweet, is on the strong comments on what forms acceptable speech, hate speech, cyber crimes on the online space is regulated in Nigeria. Now I'm coming to the most recent incident involving Omoyele Sowore. Is this move by the DSS, which many say should be the way to go about it, other than arresting persons who we see or view as being capable of having breached the hate speech bracket? I want to get your honest opinion on this development on the program this morning.
Okay, thank you very much for that question, though. Now, the reality of things is this. They say there is freedom of speech. We all agree there's freedom of speech. But one thing we often fail to realize is the fact that freedom after speech isn't guaranteed anywhere in the world, not even in America. Of recent, we saw the situation of Charlie Cake, where it was being gone down, wasted, just like that. Now, it's arguably one of those things where you can tie it to a lot of proofs of based on things is said before, because somebody won't just pick up a gun and try to eliminate another person. It's clearly political. Now, back to the Nigerian situation here. You see, one thing with Nigeria is we have this habit where Africa in general, we have this habit where we don't focus on problems like the root cause. Instead, we try to treat symptoms. Now, the DSS is partly right to pick it up against Sowore, but then it's just a symptoms. Sowore, on the other end, I won't say is wrong, I won't say is right. Because if we are to be fair and honest, criticism isn't something you can roll out anywhere. But then constructive criticism, like saying things as they are, it's something the average human cannot do. And if we look at democracy itself, it's cultism. That's the simple truth about democracy. Now, you see Sowore and Very Dark Man, they literally both do the same thing. They thrive on rage, and the way it works is their followers, the average person who follows them, cannot think by themselves. These are people who thrive on rage and stuff like that. So how do you arrest somebody who incites a mob, who has an active mob following him? How do you arrest that kind of a person, lock them up, and just expect that to be the solution to the problem? That alone doesn't fix the problem. Even if the case gets to courts, Sowore goes to jail, it doesn't fix it. You would see other people coming up to criticize and even using harsher words, more like derogatory words, unprintable statements. Now, this isn't a situation for just the DSS. The National Orientation Agency has its role to play. And the reason why I would say they have their role to play is democracy as we have it in Nigeria. It's something else completely, even everywhere in the world. Now, what people don't understand is this: whether you attack the president or you defend the president, you are doing it from a partisan angle most of the time. Now, when you do that, look, given the picture of what democracy is, cultism, like pure cultism, if you ask me, you would definitely overstep bounds. Let's take what's it called? Peter Obi, for example, and what's this guy, Reno Mokri. Now, regardless of what the president does at this time, at this point in time, good or bad, Reno Mokri will definitely like defend. He doesn't like Dude is literally one of those people who call appointment trustless, trying to get an appointment or maybe trying to like sustain his ground where his bread can be like continually buttered. Now, Peter B on the other side would definitely attack whatever the president does because he's in opposition. Now, the obedience. These are people who thrive on, let me paint Peter Obi as a typical VDM, a typical Sowore, like they fall inside the same classes. Now, if you look at that, there is nothing Tinubu will do. His president's fine. There's nothing, even if you make transportation completely free for the average Nigerian, they will still say no.
They might pick holes. They might pick holes in it. Oreoluwa, let's start from the first premise of these comparisons you're making about these individuals who, on the online space, are very opinionated about current policies of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu-led government. It's from the catchphrase of what you termed constructive criticism. Let's bring our viewers back to the statements made by Omoyele Sowore that led to this debacle with the DSS. It was following the president's trip to Brazil. And my question is on choice of words. He called the president a criminal and said that he was telling an audacious lie in Brazil. My question is, can criticism be positive without name calling?
You see, criticism is never positive. It's never, there's no nothing positive about criticism. The only thing positive about criticism are the things we get to do with. Criticism itself is never positive because there's this thing we say, truth is bitter. So if something is bitter, that's clearly not positive. When you take criticism the way it is and you act on it, whatever you do with it, like you handle it positively, that's when we now get like positive results. Now, for you to like even take it in the first instance, it has to be sweet to the ears in a way. Some of these things Sowore and the likes are saying, I say more than that. It comes off as sarcasm and stuff like that. So you can't really hold it against me. But then using the word.
All right, now, Oreoluwa, you've used sarcasm there. Sarcasm is not as direct as name calling. When you use some words, because I've had the pleasure of interviewing Sowore here in the studio, and all through our conversation, I had to remind him that we have younger viewers on TV, and he might choose a better word that is more airworthy. For the online space, those reminders are not present. So people tend to use words, and at the afterthoughts, think that those words are probably not age appropriate or might have been name calling in some way. So how do we balance that? You've used sarcasm in the ways you say yours. Do you think it should be a conscious part on the minds of persons who might not have the sarcasm you have in expressing your thoughts?
Okay, you see, the thing is this. Most of the intent. Now, when I say things, I don't say them from the perspective of what I want to gain. I don't even care who is listening. I don't care whether you like it or not. I don't care whether you share it or not. My own is to say what I see as the bitter truth and hope society picks on it and act accordingly. Now, when you look at the typical Sowore, VDM, the average partisan person in politics in APC, PDP, Labour Party, even those within the political circle, like very close to the president, they use all these words all the time. And that's the reason why democracy is cultism. Like, I can say it 1,000 times. Democracy is cultism. Now, you see, if you look at it carefully, the origin of democracy itself was never built on anything good. Now, let me paint a simple situation. Given the fact that President Tinubu is like fixing Nigeria, using reforms and all that and stuff, fine, it's never enough. Reforms do not reach everybody at the same time. But given the fact that he's working and we can see changes, like positive changes, does it make sense to tell me, okay, we have to come out and continue? Now, let's even just put that aside. Let's put into consideration the amounts being spent on each election. The last time it was about 305 billion naira. The next one, I think they are beginning to say 350 billion or maybe 400 billion naira. Just imagine like what that money can do in terms of infrastructure, instead of wasting it on an election that you already know the results. Because
no, that's another notion that we might not know the result. And I always beg to differ, because if votes did not count, we won't go through the process. As much as the National Assembly is constituted to have a defense of the budgets that appropriate sums for the conduct of elections in Nigeria, to enhance transparency with the introduction of technologies, be it in the BVAS or the IREV, it's a wrong notion to tell Nigerians that we already know an election result before it's announced.
It's a wrong notion. But if we are to be sincere with ourselves, like from the inception, like you see, you can vote. Your votes count. Votes do count, fine. But are you the one to count the votes? That's the one thing we don't understand. You see, election itself, voting, it doesn't favor the average poor man. Even the middle class, it doesn't favor them. Democracy and election actually favors those in power, the elites, the 1% of the 1%. These people, regardless of who is in power and stuff like that, they have their ways around it. They are only fighting for like a better stance. And the state is literally the mechanism behind the average billionaire you see. Take a look at Dangote, the Ote dollars and stuff like that. These people are not just wealthy because of like mindsets, what they can do and stuff like that. They thrive on the democratic setting. That's the reason why you'd have a few people being extremely wealthy and a whole lot of people extremely poor. If you look at China, for example, China literally has like one of the highest growing figures of billionaires. I have Chinese friends, like a few of them. These people, fine, you might still have people who are poor there, but we have more Chinese people becoming billionaires while we have lesser Americans becoming billionaires. We have lesser Europeans becoming billionaires. More Chinese are becoming billionaires. Take a look at infrastructure. American infrastructure is continuously decaying. Even in Britain, London, for example, Kemi Badenoch wouldn't become a hero if democracy, as we say, it works. But because democracy doesn't work for humanity, that's the reason why Kemi Badenoch would even become a hero in Britain. So we need to understand these things clearly. You see, the way that democracy works is this. If democracy gives you a setting where you move 5 steps forward, then you go 20 steps backward. That is democracy for you.
It's born of the choice of people in the elections. But let's move away from democracy and come back to the subject matter. And now the subject matter is hinged on a post made on X by Sowore, which the DSS, in the suit filed in court, considers to be inciting and malicious. Now, talking about our global image, regardless of who is president or who isn't president, how we paint the country abroad. Because part of the context of that post was that there was no corruption under the current administration, which Mr. Sowore felt aggrieved by, which he called an audacious lie, calling the president a criminal. When we look at statements capable of inciting some level of reaction from Democrats, borrowing from your analogy with democracy, would you say that those posts tint global images, or they can also draw reactions from Nigerians in the negative?
Okay, you see, if you have to be very sincere, the post is wrong. But then, is Sowore the first person to do that? No. Peter Obi literally did the same thing a few months back. Like, the same thing.
The same thing in calling the president a criminal?
No, not calling the president a criminal, but something similar of the same nature, demarketing Nigeria. Peter Obi's own was even worse in the sense that it was clearly done in a way that it would wreck the Nigerian economy. This was some months ago, and I literally wrote against it. That was then. Now, if Peter Obi wasn't arrested, why do you think arresting Peter Sowore would
no,
do anything?
But he wasn't arrested. He was charged to court, and that brings in the conversations on the provision of the law, because the federal government is citing a contravention of Section 24(2)(b) of the Cyber Crimes Prohibition and Prevention Amendment Act of 2024. It's on the provision of those laws which, I don't know if for lack of awareness, a lot of persons on the online space are slightly culpable of breaching the law in that regard.
A lot of people, almost everybody.
What can be done to heighten this awareness that the use of certain malicious or inciting messages can cause you to face such court charges?
Okay, so here's the thing people should understand. The Chinese, there is this impression we have about China a while ago, where you can't just post anything in China. You either get jailed, or they disappear. You just disappear from the scene. Now, that was one of the reasons why China grew. Up until recently, nobody has an idea of what exactly goes on in China. Whether the government does something bad or not, that criticism literally did not exist. And that was the reason why China was able to grow. Now, when you spill some truths, you say it the way it is. Indirectly, you might be causing harm. And the way Yoruba people put it, they will say, "Enigba lo babo." Like, if you say something now and it's derogatory, by the time you come out and say, "No, this thing is not the way it is, I didn't intend to say it like that," not everybody will add the way you say it at first, would hear your response afterwards. Now, was Sowore wrong in using the criminal analogy? Yes, it's wrong. He shouldn't have used that. But then let's come to look at it clearly. Is corruption still in Nigeria or not still in Nigeria? Nigeria is still corrupt. Let's just be honest. It's still corrupt. But the president is fighting corruption. He's doing everything possible. But because of what democracy is itself, it's difficult to get rid of the problem. Now, if you see the issue of tax of recent, we've been having hikes in taxes and stuff like that. Even the passport prices going up and stuff like that, and people still defend blindly. Then I was happy something happened recently. The president revoked a certain tax. I think it has to do with imports. Now, it gives you the impression that the man at the center of it all is not even the one responsible for everything. So, in as much as...
Yes, of course, that's correct. You have ministries and departments, agencies of governments that oversee such tax, like the FOB 4%, on importation you're talking about, that is under the Nigerian customs.
Exactly. So some of these issues that come up that would make us drag the president, we are not even his own idea, we are not even his own plan, but those around him. And if you are not able to call it out directly, there would be no solution. So indirectly, we have a system where cabals are the ones ruling the country. Go back to the Buhari dispensation. It was very clear some people were behind the country. And even now that Tinubu is president, I'll tell you for a fact, cabal still rule the country in every democratic dispensation.
Whilst that is subject to debate, I don't want for us to digress so much. I want us to focus on this, and then we have some other topics to discuss.
Sure, that's fine.
Now that we've established the train of events from when he made the post about the president's trip in Brazil, the fact that in your opinion he was wrong to have made those posts using those malicious and inciting words, there were now steps taken in between to address it before the DSS filed those charges. The DSS wrote to Meta and X to seeking that post be deleted, which Sowore was notified of. Having been notified about that, he now filed a suit saying that it is unconstitutional censorship. It also forms suppression of free speech, which was signed by his lawyer, Tokpe Temokun, and made available to the press as well. It's relative to what we saw over time, because I'd like for us not to make it an entirely Nigerian affair. It happened to US President Donald Trump. His X account was also taken down, and despite having his friend Elon Musk in power with X, it's been also shady bringing him back on the platform. Happened to Kanye West as well, when he went all ballistic on X as well. His account was taken down as well, taken down across board, even on Instagram. Talking about suppression of free speech and statements capable of inciting anarchy, where does the social media platform align with the government of a country to ensure that these things are checked? Because apparently Sowore is very angry that the DSS even wrote X seeking that his tweet be deleted.
Okay, the thing is this. It's a very dicey one. Me, myself, I've had Facebook accounts deleted, like banned, about 4 times. And this isn't even like a 2020. This was way back when Facebook was still hot, like in the early days of Facebook, while the president, Goodluck, kind of. So, constitutionally, it's wrong. Inciting anarchy, that's true. So, you have a situation whereby you really have to control social media. You have to control what people say. But then, not in a democratic setting. We have to shift for democracy. If you really want to control social media, if you want to control what people say on social media and stuff like that, if we are really like focused on building the country, you have to silence voices. Anything criticism, in short, has to like be silenced. But then you are not just silencing them because you want to practice democracy, which is insanity itself, like free range. You are silencing them because you want to grow constructively in a way that is collective for everybody. Using meritocracy, for example, there is less to talk about. So in a meritocratic setting, you can censor speech. You can ban people from saying anything. You can even ban people from like staying on social media, writing rubbish. But it means you are also not doing the partisan thing democracy allows. So, take Sowore to court, send him to jail, fine. But provided you are not going to do that and continue to practice democracy. If what you want to practice is democracy, then people like Sowore needs to be out there. The reason why they need to like take them off the equation is this. You take them off the equation to prevent anarchy. But then, when you want to prevent anarchy, do you tell me you want to rule using the democratic like scenarios? It won't work. Day in, day out, you would have people who would like rage. Rage is a continuous thing. It doesn't end with one person. And the more attention you give to these guys, the more attention you give to Sowore, the more attention you give to BDM, the more attention they gave to Nnamdi Kanu was what led to their continuous, like the continuity in their reach. So if you continue to pay just attention on that without dealing with the disease called democracy, you'd have a situation whereby after Sowore, you now have to deal with another one. And it doesn't make sense. It's like 2 steps forward, another 3 steps backward. So if you ask me, what Sowore did is wrong and he should even go to jail for it. But then, it doesn't mean we should continue practicing democracy the way it is. Democracy itself is the reason why we would have people like that, and is the reason why anarchy would always rise. Look at Kenya a few months back, the Gen Z protest in Kenya and stuff like that. Most of these things boil down to a lot of things. Sometimes it's not as if the president is not working, but because democracy as it is designed that way, you would have people that would always come out to say, no, this is, even if make Nigeria paradise, make it heaven, some people will say it's still not cool enough. And that is what democracy gives you. You will never fix a country with democracy. It doesn't work anywhere. It has never worked. I have never seen it work, and it will never work.
Well, interesting take there on the subject. In closing this conversation and opening the door to the next discussion, it's on the 5-count charges now facing Omoyele Sowore, having been a former presidential candidate under the AAC and now most actively a human rights activist in his regard. It's also the next discussion on anarchy again. This time around, the APC is cautioning the ex-vice president Alhaji Atiku Abubakar on inciting anarchy and degrading his status as former VP. This is following, again, his opinion of the current policies of this administration. I know the former vice, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, has been also very active across the X space, particularly talking about his interest in football, supporting his favorite club. But again, when it comes to the political conversations, he's also very opinionated in that regard. When it comes to being able to share your view or opinion of certain policies, whether they favor your political ideologies or not, but in the best interest of Nigeria, how much can we tackle this rage which you have identified as part of the root causes and have a nationalistic perspective in speaking on issues that concern our country?
Okay, you see, having a nationalistic perspective is one would rule out. It doesn't happen. It will not happen. Personally, I've attacked Atiku times without number. I even intentionally would tag him to posts. Now, if you look at some of the things he does, like if you look at it deeply, we look at the Fulani issue in Benue, Plateau, stuff like that. Majority of the posts he would make, like immediately after the violence strikes, like if you read those posts, you get so emotional. It looks like very calm, like you would want to pity him. Then you would want to attack the government in power. If you even look at it clearly and like you look at it, you dissect it down to the root, there is a clear link between Atiku and VDM. A very clear link. In some cases, it even looks as if he's one of those fueling VDM, either by thoughts, by funds, or reaction.
Allegedly. Allegedly. As much as you say clear, it's still alleged without the facts to prove.
Okay, without the facts still proved, do you know that when you come out to defend somebody, you stand with them? And he's done that before. So let's just put that aside. Now, Atiku's own is this. Regardless of whatever he says, Atiku becoming president of Nigeria is even a disastrous thing to think about. Like, there are things Obasanjo has said about him. I don't want to go into that.
In his book, just to back you right, yes, it's printed in his book, he's documented, which he didn't challenge. So if you reference that, you can carry on.
Okay, so now, in as much as Atiku did not challenge that in court, it gives us a fact that it's true in a way. Because if somebody calls you a thief and you don't challenge it in court, it means you are guilty of something and you don't want it to like spill. You are only trying to like manage the situation. So Atiku becoming president of Nigeria is even a disastrous thing to think about. But can Atiku still work towards building a better Nigeria? Yes. Can Atiku work with Tinubu to build a better Nigeria? Yes. Can Peter Obi work with Tinubu to build a better Nigeria? Yes. Everybody, regardless of where they stand, can come together to build a better country. But that is when we get out of the democratic cultism mindset where it's like my gang versus your gang, that kind of a thing. I made a post recently and people were even attacking me, like some even said all they've seen me done my entire life is attack Tinubu. And I'm like, ow. Now, it boils down to cultism mindsets. Nothing, even without provocation, you would want to attack whoever is not on your side. Even if you don't attack them, you would want to talk them down. Even if you don't talk them down, you would want to see the evil in whatever they are doing, just so you can thrive. And that is what Atiku has been doing over the years. He keeps trying to become president. I don't know why. But does he need to become president? No. It's even a waste of time him trying to become president. We need to understand the fact that if we are to think for the average man, like the poor, we really want to fix a country, we need to think beyond personal gratification. We need to think beyond what do I get from this thing. We need to think for what would people get from it? What would the poor man get from it? Do I just want to become president so that I can enjoy Jet A1, fly to Paris, fly to Seychelles, fly to Brazil? Or I want to become president so that I can build a better nation? Do I want to become president?
That's the nationalistic perspective I was asking you about. As much as you disagree on my view of it, you're still harping on the things that a nationalistic perspective should enshrine, away from personal gratifications and glory. How do I contribute to this nation to be a better place for my children unborn? Now, I'm talking about his status, which the APC's National Publicity Secretary, Felix Moka, responded to. He says that having been a two-time vice president under the PDP's 16-year rule at the time, he shouldn't be making comments that are divisive and capable of causing a revolution, because his most recent comments were talking about the current hunger and hardship in Nigeria, where he likened the situation to events that led up to the Arab Spring and the Russian revolutions as well. It seems similar in some sorts to the revolution now of Sowore. I know we're trying to draw the connecting lines between VDM, the former VP, and all the likes as you liken them. But what is the danger of having such build up in terms of an anarchy causing situation?
See, the truth is this. We really need to get rid of democracy itself. If we don't get rid of democracy, these things will continually happen.
By get rid, you mean we need to find our own type of government, a system of government that works for Nigeria, other than calling it democracy?
Perfect. Tinubu doesn't even need to contest the next election. If he contests the election, he will definitely win. We literally know the result already. And the election is not even necessary. The next election is not necessary.
But people should be allowed to participate and express their civic duty. De-enfranchising them by saying don't vote, many people will feel de-enfranchised in terms of their ambitions and their will to participate in the process.
You see, sometimes what we have and we think what we have is real is not real. It's just an illusion. People think China doesn't practice a situation where everybody has a voice and everybody has a say, but that's totally wrong. As a matter of fact, the average Chinese contributes more to the government of China than the average Nigerian. Democracy gives you a situation whereby a certain 5%, the elite and those in the high orchestra or like in the high range of the middle class control and decide the results. The average poor man going out to vote does not have a voice. I'm sorry to say it. In China, for example, they practice autocratic meritocracy. But then, when you look at the way they structure their policies and stuff like that, you can read about it. These guys literally come together in whole. So, if we take democracy out of the equation, we throw democracy away into the bin where it belongs, and we go through what I'll call meritocracy or autocratic meritocracy, autonomous. Sorry, not autocratic. Autonomous in the sense that every region is forced to grow on its own without anybody meddling into their affairs, without them meddling into another person's affair too. And meritocracy in the sense that because you've performed, you now have the right, you've earned the right to lead at a greater stage. Tinubu, for example, some will say, would I say this if Tinubu wasn't president? Maybe no. Why am I saying it now that he's president? Because we've seen what he did in Lagos. And if you ask me, over the years, what Lagos has practiced is not democracy. If we have to be honest, if we look at it clearly, what the Lagos have practiced is not democracy. That's the reason why you have some funny point of view where people make it look as if it is one man that owns Lagos. No, it's not one man that owns Lagos, but that vision has been there and one man has been able to enforce it and make it work. So Tinubu as president for Nigeria can replicate that thing where we have a system where people rise based on merit. Look at Wike, for example. Look at what Wike is doing in Abuja, making Abuja become more better than even the roads in the UK. I can tell you for a fact that roads in Abuja now are better than some roads in the UK. It's a fact. But why do we have that? We have that because of a system where you have to work. Fine, the reason why you have to work is not yet clear to the poor. It's still a more of an insight in where those who are close to the table eat from the table. But then, if we want a situation where the country works for everybody, we need to get rid of democracy. Getting rid of democracy, Tinubu can continue as president for the next 20 years. God gave him the good health and stuff like that. He can continue as president for the next 20 years. And we would move forward, would progress without even going backward. And every Nigerian would have a say in how the country runs and how the country works. And we don't have to shut anybody down that you are not making sense when the person says, no, government is not working. We need to understand how these things work. If you come up with a policy, you say this policy, we are implementing a 5% tax on everybody for national growth and stuff like that. In a case where we have autonomous like meritocracy, or where people work based on merit, and it's not democracy, when somebody says, no, this thing isn't going to favor us, we don't look at it from the angle of cultism. Like, oh, they are saying it won't favor us because they are not the one in power and they are not the one eating. We look at it from the angle of, okay, this person is not saying this because they want to take our position. They are saying it because they want a better country. Then we now being forced to reflect and think, does this thing really make sense? That's one of the reasons why the president revoked that 4% tax on imports. So we need to understand that democracy doesn't serve us. It really boils down to it. Every argument would have Sowore, Atiku, PDP, APC, somebody is saying this, anarchy that. It all boils to the case of democracy. Democracy is wired in such a way that you would always have anarchy once in a while. Even if you don't have it every 4 years, you would have it every 8 years. Even if you don't have it every 8 years, you have it every 12 years. Even if one man continues to rule for the next 20 years, like we've seen in some neighboring West African countries, you would always have that problem. It doesn't end in any way. Democracy itself is what fuels it. So you get rid of democracy. You choose an option where merit begins to count, where people begin to rise based on what they can do, based on how they've done it, based on proofs that are on ground. So you know that when you hold the public office, if you don't perform, you get voted out. It's not voted out in the sense that we organize an election, we are wasting another 400 billion naira. You get kicked out because you did not perform. It's like we give you a test. You fail at the test, now go home. Somebody in Aso Rock is literally collecting salary. Meanwhile, his state is not safe. How do you tell me that makes sense? It doesn't make sense. And you still see people praising this man. Oh, he has computer brain, blah, blah, blah. You have computer brain. You cannot fix security in your own state. And you're a governor for years. What sense does it make to now be a vice president? You see, some of these things, we need to look at it holistically. You won't build a nation in a democratic dispensation with a democratic setting, with democratic license. It doesn't work. It would only favor those who are close to power, those who have a voice, those who can perform for the crowd and like rage. If you can conversations like that's what happened with Charlie Kirk. If you can say controversial things and stuff like that, spectacle, just come display like they do in BB Niger, you'd rise. But what do the people now gain from your rise? Absolutely nothing. Even if you try to build, there's that assurance that the next person after you will draw in a lot of things. And
all right.
That.
All right. In closing, we have a little less than 10 minutes to wrap up on our discussion. This brings me to the final subject on the table this morning. It's the speculations that continue to grow as we get closer to 2027. And one name is on the scorecards. It's the former president, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. There's some school of thoughts that feel the way he considered defeat in 2015, his emergence to the seat of power in the first place, and his disposition towards dissenting voices, particularly because when he was president, the current president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, led the Occupy Nigeria campaign, protesting against subsidy removal, the current state of the economy at then, when little fuel was even not up to 100 naira per litre. But he entertained all those dissenting voices. Caskets were carried out in the open with his name on it that almost gave his mother a heart attack at the time. Nobody was charged to court. Nobody was arrested. When it comes to the person of Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan and the calls for him to return and run for the seat of president, which a lot of persons, even within his current party, the PDP, in reference to the FCC minister, feel he shouldn't not because he might not win, but because they believe he has created a legacy where he is now viewed as an African leader and should not come back into the Nigerian political space as an actor. What are your thoughts about the person of Dr. Goodluck Jonathan and his 2027 candidacy?
Okay, I'll For clarity purposes, I would go back down the lane a little bit. Over the years, my voice in politics literally started with defending Goodluck Jonathan, not even the PDP. And part of that we narrowed down to personal experience. I've been at the Nigerian Police Academy in Wudeli, Kano before. That's way back 2015 thereabout. Now, personal experience, me and the way Jonathan was treated. Now, let's put that aside. You see, when Jonathan considered defeat, that act that made people look at him as an African leader, the right person who should lead, a good man for leadership, was one of the reasons why I didn't like it. In as much as I liked him and I defended him, I hated that idea that he had to step down and admit defeat. You see, a few days before the election that kicked Jonathan out, just a few weeks before the election, Boko Haram had been added then. The issue of insecurity at large had been narrowed down to just one local government. You can go back and fact check this. You can check the records, like newspaper archives and stuff like that. Just 1 week, just about 2 weeks or so, it had been contained to just one local government, and Nigeria was already winning that fight against insecurity. Now, Buhari became president. What happened? The next minute, they allowed these people free flow, no more checkpoints, stuff like that. It made sense to some people, but it was utmost insanity. It didn't make sense for the Nigerian situation. Today, we are still fighting insecurity. We are still fighting bandits. We are still fighting all these things. Now, let's put insecurity aside and how Jonathan handled it. Why we still have insecurity today? Do you tell me Jonathan is still the best person to lead Nigeria, considering how Dasuki, I think, yeah, it's Dasuki, the Dasuki Gate scandal where money meant for security was being siphoned, they were looting it, and we have a lot of people benefiting from that loot. Does it make sense to now tell me that is the right person to lead the country? No. Is that kind of person who is silent, is calm, is good, is like he allows for everybody, he feels emotion and stuff like that. But that is not the kind of person you want at the helm of power. That is not the kind of person you want to lead a country. You see, in every democratic dispensation, there would always be cabals. Even without democracy, there would always be cabals. But when you have somebody who is too soft, too meek, too calm, the cabals now begin to thrive. When you have somebody who is strong, who has the wit, who has the grit, somebody like Tinubu at the helm of power, you have a situation whereby what the cabals can do become less. And even if they try, he still has his own game plan that would outsmart them. Now, do we need Jonathan in government? Yes. Do we need him as president? No. It's that simple. So if we would get out of the madness that...
When you say in government, are you looking at the seat of the Senate president? What office are you looking at?
Necessarily not an office. You see, that's the reason why we have to ditch democracy, like throw it out of the window. When you get rid of this democratic mindset, it's something a senator can just propose a bill and would all vote like for a common referendum and stuff like that. In government, you can have, despite the fact that Tinubu is president now, you can have Jonathan in government. You can have even Peter Obi in government. You can have Atiku in government. Name them, any person, regardless of the voice they hold, what role they've played in the past. You can have everybody working together for a better country. They don't have to hold a position, say Senate President, Vice President. That is just for you chop, I chop. That's even the reason why we have 8 years north, 8 years south, that kind of a thing. It's a situation whereby everybody comes to the round table and say, okay, this isn't going to favor the people. This would favor the people. Let's do it this way. Oh, I've done this way. This was how it worked in my own time. This is the reason why we shouldn't try it now. That is how nations grow. You see, nobody is an island of knowledge. I don't know it all. Nobody knows it all. We all have fault lines. That's the regular human for you. Now, being able to evolve requires learning from others. necessarily not learning from yourself. So you don't have to make a mistake before you grow. You only need to learn from those who have made that mistake and those who have been there before. Atiku has been vice president for 8 years. Obasanjo has been president for 12 different years. Democratic military. All these people can come together and build the country, but that is when we get rid of the courtism we practice. Democracy is not any form of government. It's pure courtism. It's advanced courtism, if you ask me. So until we get rid of that courtist mindset, me against you, we won't evolve. We won't even be able to build a nation. So we need to get rid of that. Then we now begin to see the other person on the other line as a brother, not an opposition, regardless of tribe. Oh, you are Fulani, I'm Yoruba. Oh, you are Fulani, I'm Igbo. Oh, you're Hausa, I'm Efik. We begin to look at each other as brothers, not opposition, not antagonists.
Are you sure we can achieve a Nigeria where there is no division along ethnic lines? It seems as though even with the introduction of the federal character principle to ensure some sort of equity in the sharing of these positions, which you are recommending that they be scrapped, Nigerians continue to hold high sentiments when it comes to religion, ethnicity, tribe, and whatnot.
You see, one thing people do not understand is this. Politics, partisan politics and religion, they do the same thing. And these things were brought in by those who colonized us. That was the reason why they were even able to colonize us in the first instance. I've lived in 4 different countries. I've interacted with people across different ethnic groups. And I can tell you for a fact, humans are the same thing everywhere in the world. And the only reason why you'd have people opposing themselves, fighting themselves, is because you have an idea that somebody is on the other end. They want to achieve something else, or they want to take what I have.
But Oreoluwa, how is it possible that when we talk sports, particularly one sport that unites, football, it's possible to have fans from different perspectives converge on a position, and rarely would you find a lot of chaos when it comes to disagreements on who is supporting the better team or the better nation that ends up in bloody brows?
Okay, you see, if you look at football, for example, I'm not a football person, but I'll tell you for a fact, there have been cases where team A versus team B ganged up against each other, like they literally fought. You can check. You will definitely have found cases like that. Football,
but not in the magnitude when we have infightings when it comes to politics and religions, with bloody massacres of several hundreds and thousands killed.
You see, that's the reason is because football does not mirror the complete democratic setting. It doesn't mirror the complete religious setting.
But can we borrow from that unity and the way people remember that it's a game in some sorts? Because people tell you politics is also a game.
Politics is not a game. Politics seems to be a game, but with democracy, it's not a game. It's courtesan. You see, with football, you can be an Arsenal fan and you're a Christian. You can be an Arsenal fan and you're a Muslim. You can be an Arsenal fan and you practice Indo-Buddhism and stuff like that. And you all would still unite. You support the same thing. You just want to win together. So it's completely different from the way democracy works. The way democracy works, the person on the other side is doing nothing. I'm the only one doing something. I'm the only one who can do something. That is democracy for you. And democracy for you states that I must be the one to win, or my man must be the one to win for us to be able to move forward. If the person in power is not my person, or they are not able to convince me enough to see why they should lead, and I can join them and now eat from them, it's not going to work. That is democracy for you, and that is the reason why democracy has to go.
Now, in concluding, before we say our goodbyes, youth participation. A lot of youth interested, have opinions, share them much like yourself. Very few go into the acts of party registrations, card-carrying members, aspire. Even fewer are with the ongoing PVC registrations, are picking up the intention to want to vote and exercise that civic duty. How do we conscientize more youths to share opinions, have PVCs, or even go as far as not too young to run as the ideologies have been in the past?
You see, one thing with youth participation in politics is this. You can tell them, oh, this is something you should do. You can even make them have the interest. But when you have a system that kicks them out, when you have a system that silences their voice, where you have a system where their voice do not really get to matter, you have a problem. It's like you building anarchists. So indirectly, when you say youth participation, sometimes what you are referring to is more youths coming into the table just to like cause anarchy. But then if we would allow their voice to count, if we would really take their thoughts and walk along with what they think, how they think they feel things should be done, we can build a nation looking at what they are willing to contribute and what they can contribute. If we can't get them to contribute and accept their contribution, you see, it's one thing to participate. It's another thing to contribute. It's another thing for your contribution to be accepted. We have women in politics, fine. Do we really accept their contribution in politics? Kind of no. So if we are still battling with women in politics, we are not yet able to have enough women in politics, how much more are we now able to have much youth in politics and their voice would actually count?
All right.
It's not just about...
all right.
It's not just... Yeah.
Land your thoughts. Land your thoughts before we say our goodbye.
Okay, it's not just about having youth in politics or having women in politics. It's about making their voice in politics to count. That's what matters the most.
Thank you very much, Oreoluwa Olaleye, for joining us all the way from Ghana. I'm just hoping you haven't jackpot though. We'll be having you back in the country.
No, Nigeria is too long to live. Thank you very much.
On a lighter note, that is, we appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
You too.
Well, that's our package on the program this morning. My name is Beto Bryan, thanking you for being a part of this discussions and the interviews bordering on review of headline stories and the positions ahead of 2027, speculations intensifying over ex-President Goodluck Jonathan's 2027 candidacy. Would he be coming back to the PDP? Should he even be running for the office of presidency, or should he reserve his role as an African leader and continue to contribute from the outside inwards? Well, these questions remain to be answered ahead of the election circle.